Welcome to On a Way with Beryl Botman, in conversation with Helen Seaman. Today I have the privilege of speaking to a trailblazing property developer. She has a wealth of information, of knowledge and experience in a world that is not usually very welcoming for women. Enjoy this conversation. Welcome, Helen. It's so good to have you today and to talk about your career as a property developer. I'm so excited and admire you so much for what you are doing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I have come to know you as a passionate person in whatever you do. But I have to tell you, I Googled women property developers in South Africa, and the AI kept on popping up realtors. And I knew that there was a difference, but I wondered why AI does that. And so I asked the question, is there a difference between a realtor and a property development? And the answer was it most definitely is. And so the question that raised is, why is it not known that there are women who take the lead in property development? What do you think?
Well, it's traditionally been a male-dominant industry. I mean, the construction industry isn't really, if I may say, a feminine industry at all. If you look at, well, first of all, construction in itself is hard labor. The professionals that work in the industry are people like engineers and civil engineers and so on. And I'm very, very happy to say that has changed dramatically.
Yes.
If I look at our teams that we now work with, there are so many women in what was traditionally male-dominant professions. So it's changing. And I remember even way back when my brother, who studied quantity surveying, he spoke of women in his class, and that was in the 80s. And I thought, wow, that's quite amazing. So it's just a male-dominant industry, and I know that it'll change, and it needs a lot more changing. But it's an easy change. It shouldn't be like this.
Yes, yeah.
You know, I understand that sometimes, maybe, I don't know, it takes time to shift the thought processes around a particular industry, but it is changing. But there's still a lot of change that needs to take place.
So yes, so that is how becoming a property developer is not something that you set out to do, I imagine.
No.
But so please tell us, how did your career?
How did I get here?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's quite interesting, and people normally are quite surprised at my response when they ask me that. But I actually grew up in Namibia, and when I finished school, I came to Cape Town. That's what I always wanted to do. And my father said to me, go off and do a secretarial course. And that was the sum total of what he was going to do for me. So I did it. I hated it, but I needed a job. And I was interviewed for a property development company for a 3-month temp position. And off I went. And it was in the QS department, funny enough. And there they worked on tenders. They had their own construction team. So they weren't just developers, they were builders as well. That's where I started in 1982. And I've basically learnt on the job. I have a secretarial course education, and that's it. I was in the quantity surveying department. I then slowly worked my way through the various aspects of property development, including at one point sales, because I wasn't happy with what I was earning. I think I was earning 345 Rand a month in those days, and decided I wanted to go into sales. But before that, I was also doing a lot of the design and the client, what they call client liaison officer, which was when in those days you buy a plot and plan.
Yes.
And you would buy the plot you want and then decide what house suited that particular plot and what you liked and what your needs were. And then you'd sit down with me and we'd move plugs and walls. And so that's kind of where it started. When I was doing that, we didn't have computers in those days, so we used to take printed plans and I'd cut and
Paste.
paste.
Literally.
Literally cut and
Yeah.
paste.
Yeah.
And indicate where the plugs needed to move and so on. And yeah, that was basically, from there I then went into sales to have a better earning. And that was very interesting because it was very, very different. I decided to start selling property to earn better money. And off I went. I think the first development I ever sold in was Blue Downs.
Really? Yeah.
So I'd go and sit on a container on site and with nothing around me and just these plans, and off we went. And I found that very, very satisfying. So at the time when I got into sales, the government had decided that they would encourage first-time home buyers to be able to obtain 100% bonds without a deposit. In fact, you even included all your transfer duty and
Yes.
transfer fees and stuff, although developers at the time used to include all of that. But if you bought an existing house, the same thing would apply. And so that enabled so many people to afford a home. So they could afford the monthly payments, but they couldn't exactly save whilst paying rent to buy the house. So it was amazing, and it was so lovely to see. And you kind of got wrapped up in the excitement of ownership then. And that kind of started for me just a very different way of thinking about property. I think it wasn't just a house. It wasn't just construction, and what it represented to so many people. And so from there, we went to, I went into the marketing division of this company. And so we just grew and grew. And that's how I got to where I am today.
Yeah.
It's through I became a director of the company that I was with at the time. And here I am. And where I am today is, again, a different journey, but a journey nonetheless.
Yes, so I just want to say I was also a first-time property owner. I think I started in the 80s, yes. But I didn't buy from a developer. I bought a home from a previous owner. But it just reminded me of that time and the government subsidy that I also got because I was a government worker.
Yes.
Yeah, so it is exciting to own your own property.
Yeah.
Especially if you are not a traditional owner, as I was at the time. There nobody in my family that were women, single women, thought of buying their own property. So it is exciting, and you're looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So all your experience, I don't think you just didn't have the hands-on building, but you were, by the sounds of it, you were into all of the different aspects of property development.
Yes.
And that sets you apart, that sets your career apart, and it nurtured and developed what was necessary for you to become a property developer. So just what are the values or what do you value in terms of the property that you are involved in developing?
In terms of the product?
Yes.
So I'm not a box ticker. I never have been in anything I do. I like to really consider everything. So if we take Great Oaks, for example, if I can use it at this point, I do know you know Great Oaks. So if I take Great Oaks, for me, I did not want to just develop another retirement village. There were loads of retirement villages. I wanted it to be unique. I wanted it to be really seriously well considered so that it served the residents that live at Great Oaks. And in order to do that, I needed to engage with the professionals in their various teams. So, for example, and probably key was our neuro architect, who is doing, or maybe has completed by now, her PhD in neuroarchitecture specifically for dementia. And so I wanted it. So many times I went to retirement villages and I would see the care that was being provided, and it made me sad. Actually, it made me very, very sad. And this is even affluent retirement villages. I just think I don't think we take care of our elderly well enough. And so I just wanted to do it differently. I wanted to, not just with the human care in terms of carers, etc., and nurses and the like, but also in the design, so that it made it easier for the people that lived here. So there are certain aspects, and I'll use a few simple design aspects, which is, if you have a dementia care facility, you can't have black furniture and black carpets and so on, because it's seen as a black hole.
Yeah.
So, people are not going to sit in a black chair, number one. You want the joyous color. Color identifies, when you have a memory issue, there's certain things that help you identify your destination or what you're about to do. So you want each room to have color outside and inside. We reinforce it on the outside of your door, on the wall, but also inside with your built-in cupboard. So if you come along to Great Oaks, you'll see a whole host of colors. And I don't mean cheap and nasty colors, good quality colors. And we have a snoozlin room where people maybe are not, if they get a bit agitated, they go in, there's a bed that rocks them. And other stimulating lights and movement and music and stuff that calms you, as opposed to using medication. So there's that side of things, which is the more serious side of things. And then, of course, there's also the care in one's home. When one eventually needs it, it needs to be designed so you can take wheelchair access. The doorways need to be wide enough. All of those. Sorry, I get a little bit carried away when I get into this.
That's exactly what we are talking about.
I'm sorry. But it's all those considerations. So you can tick a box and say, I've built a 2 or 3 bedroomed home. But, if somebody's in a wheelchair, can they go into the kitchen and turn their wheelchair around to get back out? Can they easily go through the doorways? Can they get into the shower? Yes. Is the shower door wide enough? Can the carer get to helping with showering without getting sopping wet? Can your kitchen cupboards adjust to drop down if you go from being an able-bodied to being in a wheelchair, needing to try and function as independently as possible? And all those principles that go into it. And that's what I find stimulating, really considering those things.
Yes. And so how does it make you feel that you have spearheaded this first of its kind development? How does it make you feel?
Hugely satisfied. People say you must be proud. I don't know so much about that. I just feel satisfied because I set out to do this and I've done it. So it gives me great satisfaction. But what gives me even more satisfaction is the fact that many developers have come to Great Oaks to see what it is we've done and what they've heard about. And I think they now understand that they need to join forces and do the same. And hopefully, the future holds better design and more considered design when it comes to it. And it's not because other developers don't care, don't get me wrong. It's just we now know so much more.
Yeah.
We know so much more, and you can't ignore it and just tick boxes. We understand it. We understand design. So you need to use those principles to facilitate better care.
Do you think that these principles can be applied to people who are not affluent?
Yes. Not all of it. So let's take the extreme where privileged people will have a bed that rocks you to calm you. That costs 200,000 Rand. No. But can you design walls and, doorways that are wide enough? Can you make sure there are no trip hazards? So all your floor levels are on the level. All of those principles, it makes no difference.
Yes.
So many of them made no difference to the cost of our construction here. Some things do, but it doesn't have to. And not all of it. as long as it's considered on the design thing, it's not going to make any difference to the cost.
Have you had developers who are not developing in the private ownership also visit
No.
Great Oaks? That would be great, wouldn't
That would
it?
be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I would, in fact, I would even be prepared to help to go to the places and see what is there and see how we can maybe change it with very little cost involved. And of course, we at Great Oaks, we have access to people that could also facilitate those changes, and that I would just love to do that.
Yes.
I would love to do that.
Yes, people for the community also to get involved because it's they have they might have the necessary skills and knowledge to help with that.
But Beryl, the one thing I want to say though is you can do all of those things, all of it. But if the person caring is not the right person, is not in it for the passion, is not in it for the love, it all falls flat. And if the management of that care is not in it for the right thing, that too then falls flat. Again, then it is just a tick boxing exercise where, yes, I considered all the design principles, all of this, and that's not easy because you have humans caring for humans. And they have their own problems, their own issues. They might not might not have been trained sufficiently, because that's the other thing. We need to consider the training in this industry. And I think there the government is falling flat. I'm very disappointed. Even nursing in hospitals, and I really don't want to get into that because we'll ruffle feathers, but training is so important. And so that is something I'm looking to get involved in, where we can train people to fully understand what it's like to care for people with dignity and understanding, and where you can get so much joy back from doing what you're doing because you know you're doing it and making all the difference. That's number one. And number two, of course, salaries.
Yes.
It boils down to the salaries. And it's just the work carers do is phenomenal.
Yes.
And you can't do it without them. So you've got to pay the right wage for the right care.
Yes, for them to have job satisfaction.
Yes.
And to also have passion for what they are doing.
Yes. You can't buy passion.
Yes.
But if you have the passion, you can wear it rather thin by not actually rewarding the person in every possible way.
And providing the very important training.
Yes.
And further development.
Exactly. And support. We all want to grow. So once you've been trained, you don't want to just be left there.
Yeah.
So it's not just in the training, but it's also in the support. And in the training, it's not just job training, but understanding the experience from the people who's receiving your care. So the experience of the person that you're caring for, understanding that and what good service is in that experience of the person receiving your service, so to speak. So it's just shifting the perspective and understanding that if you just get trained to do something, the way I do it is not going to be a good experience for you, but it might be a good experience for somebody else. So it's how that service is experienced by the person, and you have to adapt it so that it's a good experience for you, Beryl, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all.
Yes.
Service isn't a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah.
It can't be. It's a guideline that gets trained, and then you have to adapt. If you pay attention, you adapt what you learn, and in that you provide the best service, because the experience for the person receiving your service is a good one.
Yeah. Yes. So that is very important in terms of the service that you provide. In your development, you are now encountering people who might be familiar with other ways of ownership, property ownership.
Yes.
Do you find that there's work to be done in terms of how people understand, or how people are helped to make the shift in understanding, but also in attitude and in the way they conduct themselves? Do you find that an issue with being in a property that is different as a different model for ownership.
So you're talking about life rights in particular,
Yes.
because this is what
Yeah.
Great Oaks is. So yes, it is quite a process. So generally when people retire, by that stage, they've owned businesses, they've owned properties, it's ownership. Life right, you own the right to live in it, but you don't own the home itself or the property itself. So, sorry, I know
Yeah.
you know that. I just thought for your audience, I
Yes.
should just
Yeah,
take
it's-
them through it.
Yeah.
So life rights literally means you're buying the right to live in a property for the duration of your life.
Yes.
That's a life right. But you don't own the house.
Yes.
You don't own the apartment. I do.
Yes.
So that's quite a shift. But it's a shift that works for both parties,
Yes.
because it's hard for people to accept that, but it's necessary for me to provide the service experience you need, because it requires the cash injection that comes back into the village. And so it's an adaptation for owners of the life rights to understand that that right is almost like a lease.
Mm.
So you're paying for your rent in advance, and let's say you pay R1 million for your rent in advance. When you pass away or choose to leave, you will get your R1 million back. So you almost live rent-free, but you don't have the capital gain.
Yes.
And that's the loss. And it is a huge adjustment for people that live, traditionally have owned their own homes and businesses and all the likes. It's a huge adjustment. But if you work together as a team and we understand that we're actually in it together, the ownership is really almost irrelevant in terms of the experience, then it's okay. Then it's not that hard. It does take some time to adjust, but soon, if you're seeing the benefits, then that's the reward.
Mutual benefit.
Mutual benefit. 100%. Yes.
You have, in the short time of the Great Oaks retirement village, you have already started getting recognition, formal recognition. What do you tell us about that recognition that you got, the award, and how you feel about, and if you do, why it is important?
Well, of course, it's important because you realize that your hard work is not gone, it's not in vain, and it's being recognized. So from that aspect, it's amazing, but more importantly, so it's great for our team, it's great for the village, it's great for everybody. But I think the message is, and this is what's important for me, the message is, if you pay attention to detail and you provide the best you possibly can with what is available at the time, and design to best suit the care that is needed to be provided, you will be recognized for that. And I think that's important, because often, I think, not often, it does take extra effort for that detail in that design. I know I worked on it for years. It's not a quick thing.
Heard you say once at an occasion, 12 years.
It took
even
12
more
years from inception, from getting the land use application in to completion of the project. Yes, it took 12 years. And a lot of it was at the time to get the approval in Constantia in particular. But whilst that was whilst the application was in the process, so was the design.
Yes.
So there wasn't a huge rush. But once we got the approval, it took probably 2.5 years of intense design work, if you put it all together, to really get it right. And even now, I must say, today I look at it and mistakes were made. You're always going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
But you learn from them.
Especially if you're doing something new.
Yes.
The chances are that you, and then the important thing is to address those and make them work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. None of them have been life-threatening. So fortunately, it's nothing that you can't overcome, but it does take time and it takes effort. and it's
Yeah.
paid off. So the reward for the award is that it's paid off, and that and that people recognize the fact that there is recognition for the effort that goes into a project like this.
Thank you, Helen. Some people are characterized as big picture thinkers, dreamers, and others are the ones who give attention to detail. In you, as a developer, I see all of that. I see the whole package, the tremendous dream that you have in the thought, and the that is things that never been done before, and the exceptional focus and attention to detail. And you don't squirm by changing things and say, "This, I thought this looked good, but it doesn't. Let's do it differently." And for that, you have my greatest admiration. Thank you so much for coming to share in your dreams. Is there anything else that you would still like to share, Helen, that I might have missed?
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate. I just want to say that anybody can do anything. As long as you believe that you can do it, and as long as you dream it and you feel it, you can have it. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you come from. I don't care how much money you have or don't have. If you just believe it, it will come your way. And I've lived my life like that. And so often I see people put restrictions in their pathway to be great. And there's greatness in everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody. And just go for it. Don't worry about how you're going to get there. Just decide what you want and go for it.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for going for it and making other people's lives richer. Thank you for sharing all your wealth of experience and knowledge, and that you are a trailblazer as a woman and as a property developer.
Thank you for having me, Beryl.
Thank you for joining us on a Way with Beryl Botman in conversation with Helen Seaman. Walk tall, tell it all. You've been listening to On a Way with Beryl Botman in conversation. My books are available online and from me directly. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram to learn more about my book talks and appearances. Feel free to write to me at beryl.botman60@gmail.com. Thank you for your time.